Welcome back. This video is going to show you how to download and install McMyAdmin and customize a few settings. Let's go ahead and go to your web browser. For me, that's Google Chrome. I'm going to type in McMyAdmin in your search bar. Hopefully you will come up with this. McMyAdmin.com works well. Just type that in there. Okay, here it is. We're going to install McMyAdmin 2. It's on the very front page. An install link. It's going to ask you what version do you want. Windows, 32 and 64-bit, GNU Linux, Linux, Mac, or other. I'm only covering the installation for servers on Windows, so I'm going to show you this. I'm going to go ahead and install it. Download it, I mean. And here's the installation window. It may come up with a window telling you you need to install certain services for Windows in order to run this application. Make sure to install those services and then go back to your downloads and run the installation again. Let's go ahead and install McMyAdmin. Accept the license agreement. Read it if you need to. Okay, this is actually very helpful as well. This does show us it's a 64-bit computer that I'm using, that I have 4 GB of RAM, 293 GB of free space, Java version 8, direct network access, and what web browser I'm set to, which I'm not sure why that shows that, but let's go ahead and continue since we already knew most of this useful information. Now it's going to ask you where you want to install McMyAdmin, and we're going to go ahead and browse and choose the location we specifically created for this, which is in this PC. You're going to want to choose your drive S, which we created server, drive S. Now at this point you can make a new folder to keep things organized called McMyAdmin, which is what I'm going to do. Since last time I did this, it just installed all of the files directly under server instead of under a McMyAdmin folder, which is cleaner, which I prefer. We're going to hit OK. You're going to need to create a password. For the sake of this video, mine is just Bumblebee. Please do not use that. It's not very safe. This doesn't really matter for me. If you want to buy McMyAdmin, there definitely are there are good perks to buying it. You're going to need to create a password. For the sake of this video, mine is just Bumblebee. Please do not use that. It's not very safe. This doesn't really matter for me. If you want to buy McMyAdmin, there definitely are there are good perks to buying it. Obviously I'm not going to buy it or use a license key on this version. For my server that I've hosted for over 5 years, I do own the professional version, and it is definitely worth having. Okay, my password is weak, as it says. Doesn't matter to me. So your web server port is 8080 default on this. We're not going to change that. You do not need to bind the IP here. You can choose to install this as a service. If you want your computer to turn on McMyAdmin the moment it starts up, you can install it as a service. If you want to turn on McMyAdmin manually every time you start your computer or every time you want to start Minecraft, leave it unchecked. Okay, this is a link that you're going to want to save in your web browser by clicking it and going to the link. Right now it's not going to bring anything up because the server's not on, but go ahead and save this bookmark. And finish the installation. These warnings are normal, as this is the first start. It actually says that right here. The game server that it's downloading right now is actually useless to us. This is the default Minecraft server that we're not going to end up using. Personally, I like to allow all of these features through all of my networks so that there's no problems. Go ahead and log in using your admin username and your password that you created. Mine was Bumblebee. Okay, now before it will create a server, all of these settings will need to be set. This is something that takes some time to set up. Set these up according to your preference. I'm going to fast forward this part during the video. If anyone has any questions, I can create a sub video for this. Do recommend setting your view distance to 10, the default. That's the end of this video. We've covered installation and setting up some settings on McMyAdmin. You can set the video to 0.5 or 0.25 speed and watch me set up the settings if you want to set them up how I did. I did not give detailed information because that would cause the video to be extremely long, and a lot of those are just preferences. There are a couple more settings I want to go into actually before I end this video. We're going to go ahead and do /quit, which is always the best way to close the McMyAdmin service. Let's go ahead and go to our server where McMyAdmin is installed. And let's go ahead and go to the McMyAdmin config file. Open it with Notepad++, and at this point, if you have not already installed Notepad++, I highly recommend it. So let's go ahead and do Control F and type in 1024, which is the default amount of RAM in megabytes that is used on the server. Now, the server right now is allowed 1 gigabyte of RAM. This is where you will change how much RAM your server is allowed to use. Previously, we looked and saw that this computer I'm using has 4 gigabytes allowed of RAM. And since the system I know uses at least about 3, I'm not going to add any more. I'm not going to change that. If you have, let's say, 8 gigabytes of RAM, you can give at least, or at most, I would recommend was 4 gigabytes to your server. And if you want to know how much that is, you just multiply the amount of gigabytes you want times 1024. And that number is what you want to put here for how many megabytes to use. That covers RAM, and that's all you really need to know. There are other settings in here. Go ahead and explore them yourself, and if you have questions, go ahead and put them at the bottom of the video. That ends video number 3. covering downloading and installing McMyAdmin and customizing settings.